now working with them. And he was one that approached them and told them to hand over the ESN. And they handed over ESN. They use ESN today to form the Agone Chamber. They use ESN to form, what do they call it? Ndakodo. They use the form different kinds of security. They formed the Anambra State today against his own people. None of them is pursuing Fulani. None of them. Some of the people that are placed here now, that you see, we have people who are responding, communities who are responding. It was in Abia State. Abia State, the vigilante group are going after the terrorists, rescuing people that were kidnapped. But in Anambra State, they go after the innocent citizens that are not armed, pastors and native doctors who has address, who live in the community. That is where his own focus is. This same man who confessed that a time will come when the Biafran people will no longer tolerate the blackmailing of the Biafran cause, using the Biafran cause for other motives, for people to go on at the back and use Biafra for their personal agenda. That a time will come when Biafrans will no longer accept that. This man was speaking to the politicians, his fellow politicians. He said elite. But today, everything Selibo talked there is what he's doing today. I want to share that video. Let me go see if I can get that video and share, because some of these things, sometimes it is better played so that you can see it. When Selibo, before he became a governor, where he was speaking, condemning the activities of the politicians and the elites, warning them of what is coming, that the time will come when people will no longer tolerate for them to use Biafra to go and buy interest for themselves, that the Biafrans will not accept it. But today, he is the one doing that exact thing. Let me see if I can get that video. Let me see.
State indices and the rankings of Nigeria, we have been coming back precipitously from number 54 in 2005, now to number 13. We are one of the countries.
This is Selibo far back. Listen to him carefully.
And so it hasn't worked. The concoction hasn't worked. The 36 state structure that we have today, Ofodile argues very forcefully that this current 36 structure is contrary to the instruments of surrender of Biafra. That there are three conditions that they agreed on the instruments of surrender. One of which was that the Biafrans said, we accept the current structure, which then was a 12-state structure. And that B or C of it was that any future change must bring all Nigerians on the table to agree. And that these were the things they signed at the instrument of surrender, but that the military unilaterally subsequently changed the structure without...
You can hear this man, this idiot Selibo. This was Selibo when he has not become a governor yet, telling you the original agreement that was reached with Biafra before the call of the war. We had 12 states, and they said it must be 12 states. If there will be any change from that 12 states, there must be a consensus. But these things will be removed and changed to different things. And yet, today, this idiot is supporting a structure of 30-something states that nobody agreed on. Today, he is the one pushing the agenda of one Nigeria more than any person. Just listen to him very well.
Then the participation of the other side, and he argued that this is against the instrument of the surrender, and that no wonder the Southeast has been marginalized out of it, 5 states out of the others having 6 and 7, as the case may be. Now there is the issue of unitary fiscal federalism instead of the 1963 Republican Constitution on fiscal federalism. There is the expansive exclusive list and having overpowerful Abuja. The development process is a trickle down from Abuja to the rest instead of a bottom-up economic and development arrangement. The census and revenue allocation that disadvantages the Southeast. There is the citizenship question. The Igbos think they become visitors everywhere all over the country. When it is time for census, the Southeast complain that they are about the only ethnic group that have maybe a majority of their people living outside of their homeland. And that during census, their populations are counted in the states where they live. Imagine a state, and then population becomes basis for sharing the oil money in Abuja. When it is time for that, you count them in there, you don't ask for state of origin in the census. But then, you use also the population to get the allocations, but when it is time to share anything else, you remind them that they don't belong here, as the case may be. So there have been issues about citizenship question, and so on and so forth. So, in other words, this system, it's not just the Southeast or the Igbos that complain. It has not worked for Nigeria. And my thesis is that even if any government, including this one, just have all the political appointments from one village, my thesis is that the life of the average person in that village will not change. Just rewind it again, and think the other way. The last regime, we had an Ebele Azikiwe as president, we had secretary to government, we had minister of finance, and coordinating minister on the economy. We had all of this, deputy senate president, this, that, and so on and so forth. Most of the financial institutions headed by people from the Southeast. And yet, there is no motorable federal highway in Igbo land. This thing is an elite game, as far as I'm concerned. The issue of who and whatever and so on and so forth is not taking us anywhere. And unless we get to the heart of it. So, it seems that there is a consensus today. There is a consensus. If you take it much broadly, the North, so-called North, if you calculate the number of years they were in power, but essentially, poverty is still predominantly a northern phenomenon. So, that you control this and a few billionaires are made here and there and so on and so forth means absolute nothing. The ordinary man in Nigeria has not benefited, is getting worse off by the current system that we have. But there is a consensus now on restructuring. And in that case, Fodile would argue that Biafra becomes a metaphor for agitation by oppressed people for justice, equity, and fairness. It hasn't worked for anybody. If you look at President Buhari recently said he also supports amendment of the Constitution or devolution. If you read the APC manifesto, it says, quote, as a change agent, APC intends to cleanse our closet to halt the dangerous drift of Nigeria to a failed state with a conscious plan for post-oil economy in Nigeria. To achieve this laudable program, APC government shall restructure the country, devolve power to the units with the best practices of federalism, and eliminate unintended paralysis of the center. End of quote. This is the government in power that controls 23 states. This is the APC manifesto. So, and the Southern People's Assembly talk about the same thing. The Afenifere's position on the National Conference, if you read it, talks about the same thing. The National Conference report talks, supported by PDP, the same thing. So what is holding us? I must say the goal of this bit should be political stability and economic prosperity. In my view, a competitive federalism. We can write a book on this aspect of competitive federalism. Compared to the First Republic, when everybody had theirs, they had the resources, especially on revenue, a fiscal federalism. We've argued before, leave everybody their own thing, let them pay taxes to the center. This umbilical cord where Abuja will set wage for everybody all over the country, and so on and so forth. It was for a time when oil money paid for it. Not anymore. Even in the US, you may have read about the governor of Maine, that the wife of the governor had to take a job in a restaurant to augment their income. Because given the state of Maine, the salary of the governor was not enough for them to survive on. And the wife had to take a job in a restaurant. The governor of Maine's salary cannot be the same as the mayor of New York, and so on and so forth. But here we've done all of this. Abuja controls it. Anyway, that's for another day. But what is holding us now, what I call as matter arising, is that the devil is in the details. Let the debate begin. What exactly do we mean by restructuring? The National Conference report, for example, is a beginning. But in my view, doesn't go much. It talks about creating more states, which misses the point. It's still more of the same. We are saying the ones that you have are not viable. 20-something states today cannot pay salaries. So what are we talking about? Or should we go back to the EQMS constitution, the proposal of 6 zonal structure as the federating units? What model of federation? Should we use the UAE, United Arab Emirates system, or which one are we going? Let us get to work and begin to think. Some people propose, and I agree, that we need a new constitution negotiated by the people of Nigeria. And my thesis is that if this is the only achievement of President Buhari, he would be the greatest statesman ever in the mode of Abraham Lincoln. But we need to get this done. That the people of Nigeria will have to get together and negotiate a new constitution for themselves. Second, or the third point, is leadership failure in Igbo land. It raises fundamental questions if you read Chude's book.
I want you to pay attention to this aspect. Leadership in Igbo land. What is he going to say? This was in the launching of the book of Chido Fodile on Biafra. I want you to listen to what this idiot is talking about. After saying all this thing, today, everything he has condemned in this very program is what he is doing today. And it was after this program that Muhammadu Buhari appointed him. After this program, Muhammadu Buhari searched him out. They appointed him and promised him Anambra State governorship and gave him the mandate on what to do, to destroy that nonsense he had been talking about. And he came from nowhere to Abga. From nowhere to Abga. While he was Abga, he was working for APC. Up to today, he's still working for APC, the Fulani party, till tomorrow. And his mission is simple. Make sure you destroy the Biafra that you spoke about before. The same condition is what they gave him to return back and serve his second term. The mission in the second term, make sure you destroy everything that has to do with Biafra and Nnamdi Kanu. Make sure you detach the youth from him. And that is why he has gone ahead to employ youths today that are working with him. I want you to hear what this idiot said before he was bought over, before he was completely captured by the Fulani terrorists. Listen to what he was saying.
On the collapse of failure of leadership in Igbo land.
Failure of leadership in Igbo land.
For the new one, whatever. It's in that light, it agitates your mind when we talk about Igbo presidency. What does that actually mean? Is it to have somebody wearing a red cap in the villa, or what? If all that we say, even within the states, a governor is first his village, his local government, then his senatorial zone, so that he can be Ocholozwa of his own local government or his village, and so on and so forth. Then let the others care. Is that the kind of leadership we are talking about Nigeria, or in the new Biafra, as it were? And we have seen it, like I said, about people occupying offices and so on and so forth. and still nothing. So the question is, the same contradictions in Nigeria are also there within Igbo land. We cry of marginalization at the larger Nigeria, but there is also cries of marginalization within. There is the identity question within. There is the citizenship and indigenship question within. How many other Igbos live in Aba and in Abia, for example? But, I don't know, 2 years or 3 years ago, that was the indigenship thing, that all non-Abia citizens were sacked from but these people had lived there, worked there, paid their taxes there. They were counted as part of Abia in the census. You collect revenue, more revenue because of them. But then, no, you can't work in there. You are not an indigent. So while we are pointing one finger there, ladies and gentlemen, look closely. The other three are saying, let's get it here. And so how can this new leadership emerge? And then of course the entry fee is very high. The fourth, the new Biafranism, and that is my last point. And let me say that Nigeria has wittingly or unwittingly dragged the Biafran issue from the periphery into the mainstream discussion. Nnamdi Kanu, in my view, threw a bait and Nigeria took it.
Listen to the idiot.
Today, he is the most popular political prisoner.
This is why this man is fighting to see that Nnamdi Kanu is destroyed. He acknowledged that Nnamdi Kanu is the most popular political figure in Biafra land today, in the entire Igbo land. The most popular political figure. And this is why this man is in the front line to destroy MAZI Nnamdi Kanu, to make sure that nobody talks about him anymore. That is why he has employed many social media idiots. He is sponsoring international and locally against MAZI Nnamdi Kanu. This bastard. Because of this comment he made. I want you to pay attention. Pay attention. Everything this man is doing today, he knows what he is doing. Listen carefully on this program. Listen.
The Biafran issue from the periphery into the mainstream discussion. Nnamdi Kanu, in my view, threw a bait and Nigeria took it. Today, he is the most popular political prisoner and will end up either as a hero or a martyr. But to his credit, he has forced Nigeria and the world to discuss Biafra. I believe that keeping him there does not do Nigeria any good. I believe this young man should be released and released like yesterday.
This is this idiot calling for the release of MAZI Nnamdi Kanu. And this was 2015. Oh, the first time MAZI Nnamdi Kanu was kidnapped, that was when he was making this that was when he made this very comment. He acknowledged the force from MAZI Nnamdi Kanu, that MAZI Nnamdi Kanu have taken the Biafran cause to a different level and forced the discussion of Biafra to be on the table. He acknowledged that time, 2015, when he was kidnapped 2015. So this video should be around that time, 2016. That was when he made this very video. Then he was still with the CBN governor or whatever nonsense he was then. Let's listen to him.
I will not be surprised if he becomes a subject of the next political campaigns.
This is what they are afraid of. That MAZI Nnamdi Kanu have become the greatest and the most political figure in Nigeria. That you can never, nobody come close to him. And this is their fear. Till tomorrow, this is their fear. This is why they don't want him to be released. Today, he's a politician. He is a governor today. The same man who is fighting for his release then in 2015, today he's saying not releasing. He is one of those trying to destroy his image by all means necessary. Look at him, what he was saying in 2016.
Just like we dealt with Awolowo, who was convicted and imprisoned of treason, or Gowon, charged with treason, or even Ojukwu himself was forgiven, and so on and so forth. I don't want to make any predictions, but I believe we need to solve this.
You see, all his predictions then, that time his brain was still okay. That time he has not completely been occupied by Fulani Janjaweed contract. He has not taken the contract he has taken today. He even made an example that everybody was having a sentence with treason. Dr. Nnamdi Awolowo, and who again? Many of them who have been put for treason. The same way Nnamdi Kanu is facing today. That at the end of the day, they emerge as a hero. They come out as a hero. That is what he was saying then in 2016. But today, he is one of those who is joining those who want to take the life of Nnamdi Kanu by all means necessary.
Because according to Ofodile, this book, quote, he said, the lesson to be learned, if anyone cares to listen, is that the detention of Nnamdi Kanu, no matter for how long, will not stop the agitation of Biafra, end of quote.
Absolutely.
He further argues that the detention of Wazurike between 2005 to 2007 helped to radicalize his followers. The same thing happened when the leader of Boko Haram was killed. His followers became more radicalized. Detention of Nnamdi Kanu, I never heard of him before this time, to be quite honest. Never heard of him. I didn't even know about the IPOP, whatever thing. Until this thing, and you now realize globally it's become an issue and it's become mainstream. Now, and again, quote, he says, this book argues that the idea of a customary government under the Supreme Council of Elders in accordance with customary law enjoys the support among a section of the Igbo. But it is the Biafra or death philosophy of Nnamdi Kanu that found resonance across the length and breadth of the Igbo nation. Therefore, there cannot be a resolution of the Biafran dilemma without a wholesome engagement of the Nnamdi Kanu stroke Uche Mefo faction of IPOB. End of quote. That's what this was. So, if I were President Buhari, quite honestly, I would be very suspicious of anyone who advises me to ignore the Biafran issue. I'll be very suspicious. Do
you imagine that if he was to be Buhari, he will be suspicious of everybody that tells him to ignore the Biafra issue? Today, this same idiot is the one that is pushing that people should ignore the issue of Biafra. Recently, he conducted a seminar where they come and they were talking all manner of nonsense. And the one that seminar is targeted at is to destroy the issue of Biafra, the marginalization and the suffering of the Igbo during the Biafran war. All these chihuahuas that he pays, all of them, all those chihuahuas under his payroll, they came to that program. I saw some portion of that program shared online. I even see one Reverend Father, that idiot that talks from both of his mouth, talking nonsense that I don't know where he got it from. And I say, what do this one think? What do they intend to achieve? The intention is to water down the suffering of the Biafran people and force you back into an entity that you did not sign up for. But this is what this man was saying before he was fully bought. Look at his line of thought.
Anybody who says that is either ignorant or being mischievous or quite patently doesn't mean well for the government itself. It probably wants the same government to repeat the mistakes of the past so that it could lead it down the train. We must start learning in this country. So let's talk Biafra. Where are the Igbo elite and the intelligentsia in all of this? Especially those in Nigeria. It seems, as this book points out, this is being driven mostly by the Igbo intelligentsia in diaspora, the new resurgence. The new ones within, there seems to be a division, 3 classes you can identify. The ones within the mainland, and I'm shocked, and you discuss, they have a different point of view. Those in diaspora within Nigeria, so to speak, who are in Abuja and Lagos and so on and so forth, Kano, Kaduna, and so on, And an elder was asked about that, living in one of these northern states, about Biafra. And they asked him, what do you think about this Biafra? He said, well, nah, I just said, no, in other words, they should keep it up, but you know I can no longer go now. You see all the things I have here, I cannot carry them on my head. So, there seems to be a sense of either denial, and on one part, or people who think, no, it won't be, because we can't just imagine it. And because of some discussion that, oh, okay, if this happens, you will lose your property, you will lose that, and so on. Of course, that is untenable. I mean, I too was wrong on this, because if by any chance you have another state of Biafra, it will be the 16th state of ECOWAS. And that means you have free movement of goods and persons. But the fundamental question, the fundamental issue is that this debate is not happening. This whole thing is being driven almost in a haphazard manner. Last week, they called for, was that last week? Yeah, last week. They called for a sit at home. And even without anybody getting out or more in force and so on, I learned virtually Anambra and many other cities were completely shut down.
You see him here confessing. You see Seibo here is confessing that there was a sit at home without enforcement. Sit at home without enforcement, and people complied. This was all the way 2016. Sit at home without enforcement, and the entire nation, the entire Igbo land complied. But today, this same man is the one today who is pushing different kinds of narrative and agenda against the Biafran struggle, against the people, including forcing them out. Today, this man is in a very deep contrast with the caliphate. And you ask, what went wrong?
It just tells you there is something going on. But, again, where is the elite in this? What is missing is structured debate and apparent elite aloofness or complicity or hypocrisy. Elite in denial. For the politicians who think you can just, let's use them temporarily, you know.
This is what Selibo is doing today. This thing he's talking about today is what he is doing in 2026. I want you to pay close attention. Everything that Seibo is saying here is what he's doing in 2026. Just listen.
Let's use them. Just go on, while we can then use that to negotiate for something here. I can tell you, you will create a monster that will consume you. When that inferno comes, both us, everybody else, and the kind of thing that happened in Biafra where dissent, any dissent was considered a saboteur. Okay? You might get to a point where you will be telling them, just go on, while we can negotiate here, get something for ourselves in Abuja. I can tell you, these guys are no fools. At some point, okay, they will look at you too and know that you're actually part of the problem. And so on and so forth. So, I say, let the debate must begin. The late Dr. Pius Okibo, in this book as well, presented what the memo by late Dr. Pius Okibo presented to the Biafran government on the economic viability of Biafra. Nobody is talking about what the currency will look like. How will you fare with international trade? What kind of constitution are you talking about? And Ofodile forcefully argues here that the Ahera Declaration of 1969 came too late. They had intelligentsia pushing for Biafra, but there was no organized structure. That if they had done what they did towards the end of the war at the beginning, Biafra would not have ended the way that it did. But what is shocking is people talk about this in their bedrooms and in their parlors. And then you come out and everybody is just, and so on. I'm sure it will not take long. So what I am calling is that we must, the elite, the intelligentsia, get out of the closet and let us, now that the issue, the president in New York made a point. He said there will be no referendum in Biafra. Now, and I said, my reaction to it was, oh my God. So this matter has actually gotten to the point where we are now talking whether to have a referendum or not to have a referendum. The moment you've reached that point, it tells you that it's only a matter of time. But who is driving the debate? The Neo-Zikism, Neo-Biafranism, and so on and so forth. Everybody seems to be quite quiet. And finally, let me agree with Wole Soyinka that Biafra is an idea. And that is what this book talks about. You can't defeat it with guns or prison cells. The only way to defeat it is to offer a counter-narrative. What should? There has been none, no counter-narrative until now. What Honorable Ofodile has done is to provide very powerful, not only counter-narrative, but counter-narratives. And I will say, and stresses the urgency of action now. The clock is ticking. And I can only end by congratulating Chode for this eminent work. Thank you very much.
You have just had a speech that was made by Seibo far back, after the detention of MAZI in 2015. And when you listen to him, you can see the role he's playing today is something he's very much aware of. There is nothing that Seibo is doing today that is a mistake. Some of you that think that he's ignorant of what he's Seibo is not ignorant of anything he's doing. He's very much informed on what he's doing. And that is why he knows the effect of MAZI Nnamdi. He knows that the power MAZI Nnamdi carries. He knows how far MAZI Nnamdi have gone. And that is why he's in the front line fighting it to make sure that MAZI Nnamdi is not released. Destroying his image, destroying his identity, destroying his personality. And you ask me, what does he intend to gain? What do he intend to gain? A man that knows the truth of Biafra and knows that Biafra cannot be stopped. No matter what you say, no matter how you go about it, you cannot stop it. You cannot. You better stop trying. You cannot. Just when you think you get it, you cannot stop it. And when we say that, people don't really understand. We will continue to expose all these informations. We will continue to expose them. These are the people who in the past have spoken somehow good about MAZI Nnamdi and the cause of Biafra, but today they are doing totally different thing. They are on a different page altogether. They are on a different page. On total different page. How do you explain that? How will anyone explain that? I want us to listen to this other one. Let's hear.
Nigerians do not believe that Nnamdi Kanu can now receive fair trial strictly on the law, because the laws that have been, it's gone through the court processes, one court order, one outright release, unconditional release, and the Nigerian state refused. And you keep holding him until you get a favorable court order. I'm sorry. It is our view that the current circumstance makes Nnamdi Kanu and his colleagues political prisoners, our prisoners of conscience. They're no longer, it's not about crime, it's not about anything, because we're no longer following the rule of law.
The truth of the matter is, when you incarcerate an Nnamdi Kanu, who is incarcerated is not Nnamdi Kanu, it's all people of conscience. Who is incarcerated is not Nnamdi Kanu, it's all people whose perspective he represents, whether they come from an ethnic nationality group. If you incarcerate him, you incarcerate all people who believe in the rule of law. And so it is this collective imprisonment that we expect will force a rethink on the part of all people about this. So we do hope and expect that we will get results. What essentially it's calling for is citizenship and citizenship behavior.
That is it. The same man that called Nnamdi Kanu a prisoner of conscience is the one attacking him today, calling for his head. Is the one sponsoring propaganda and blackmail against Nnamdi Kanu. What went wrong? Wherever you are watching this program from, I want you to remember that we have a battle ahead of us. The supreme leader of IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, is a prisoner of conscience. And we must not stop calling for his unconditional release, wherever you are. Every Monday, remember, we observe a sit at home to demand his unconditional release, and we will not stop. It doesn't matter how many people that participate, we will keep that memory alive. We will continue to keep the memory alive and continue to make sure that the voice of Nnamdi Kanu is heard. One of the major responsibilities I have in this channel is to give Nnamdi Kanu a voice. Give Mazi Samanekwa a voice.